preparing this, and grateful for the things that are happening in Leesburg that are good. And we ask that God would bless us as we talk about our stewardship over money this evening, and the affairs of Leesburg and our city, and that we will have good discussion and make the right decisions for our city. And we say these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Ready?
So I'm ready.
All right. Well, we're off. I did hear from Commissioner Hurley. He was in a little bit of a traffic fender bender. He said he would be here momentarily.
That's why the insurance premiums went up.
In any case, tonight's, as we've done, we're breaking it down this evening, trying to focus on the general fund. And as we've done in the past couple of years, here he is.
That must not be a little fender bender.
And as we've done in the past couple of years, we lead it off with the civic funding issues, and then we move into general fund revenues, general fund expenditures, and those issues. So with that, on the civic funding, our recommendation is you do what you did last year. These are the organizations we gave to last year, totaling about $161,975 in that fashion. All this is funded through the gas department. In previous years, we did the ordeal with sending out the grant applications and the big process. I think the commission, after we did that the first year, asked that we change it down. You guys pared it down to these organizations. And I want to think for the last 3 years or so, you've done it in this fashion.
Can we turn the lights down so it'd be better to see them? Oh, that's better, thank you.
So the partnership was paid $38,710 and they want more?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
I mean, if it's everybody's pleasure, if you have no comments, this is how we have the budget process, how we have these budgeted in the draft that was issued to you.
You're welcome.
Was the band last year because they were doing the trip, or is that a normal?
I think the band last year, we gave that, and I think we gave another $1,000 for the trip.
And we gave, well, that was to the high school, so we did something for their graduation night too.
Yeah, and that was another one too. So we gave the band another $1,000, and then we gave a little bit more for.
Project graduation.
There's another.
1,700.
There's another about 20 grand of little smaller ones that we've given out, from a couple extra things to the teachers, through the chamber, through the band, Martin Luther King Committee, the Educational Foundation of Lake, $2,300. Chamber, different various sponsorships, about $13,000. The Leesburg Arts Festival, the high school project graduation, $1,700. Men of Distinction Drumline, $2,000. Miss Leesburg, $7,500. West Leesburg CDC Annual Gala, $1,000. And Voices of Children, $2,500. So, and we've taken those from various other spots. Some we had budgeted, some we didn't have budgeted, some we used city manager contingency.
Did we do any more for the West Leesburg CDC than that, or is it just $1,000?
I don't.
The gala.
We did Community Development Corp, that 38, and then we did the gala, 1,000, and that's it.
I hate to pick on things right from the beginning, but I've got a problem with that Leesburg partnership. I mean, that was an increase of what we had said we would give them of $24,000. And all of a sudden, the total line is up to $161,975. We allowed them to have a beer garden over the fireworks show, and now they're asking for even more. So I think something has got to be discussed about the partnership.
No, the 38, that's not the even more number, is it?
No, that's not. And we did have this discussion. So this represents what the commission agreed to. Last year, you did make a change in how we funded them. they were actually given less.
They were getting the 14.
They were getting the, yeah, I was looking for the number down here.
14,065.
The 14,065. In rough numbers, they were getting about $15,000 from the
Gas fund.
the gas fund, the civic funding, and then they were charged about
38.
38,000. Let's use round numbers. They were charged about 40 for public services, so they're getting 15, charged 40. They were in the hole 35. Last year, after Bike Fest, we changed the mechanism to what you see up front, whereby we increased their civic funding from 15,000 to the 38 or 40,000. And then we continued to bill them on the public safety side, so they had a net wash on their expenses, which was a subsidy to them in the tune of about 20 grand. That the commission agreed to that last year, so that's why you see the 38,710 in the grant funding.
All right, is this the recommendation going forward this year?
Yep.
I'm sorry,
That's
I
our
can't take
recommendation.
that. No.
This number just pays for Bike Fest, and I'm with you. I'm not. We can, I guess they're going to bring some other number, and I'm not wild.
That's
Perhaps we
the-
better
that's the number I
restructure
think-
Bike Fest. I mean, that's not to all the people in Leesburg to have to fund a bike
Just-
festival.
Just so that you understand our recommendation. Our recommendation is to do what you have done.
Oh, I
which is what we.
understand that.
So if you want to change that, you're going to reduce the funding. Our recommendation is stay what we've agreed to. Now, I'm anticipating that the partnership will ask for more money,
We know they're going to ask for more money.
which we brought up, and my recommendation at this stage is to say no to that, but agree to what you've committed to.
Well, I guess for me, I think we need to have a serious conversation, and I'm not opposed to the 38,000. What I saw at Bike Fest this year, I saw another city grabbing the momentum of what the Leesburg Partnership has done for Leesburg. Personally, I said they need some better acts to get people in here, because you went from big names last year for the anniversary to a second tier this year, and the numbers dropped. So I think we must decide as a commission, do we like the fact that for 4 days our city is a highlight of Lake County? Because Eustis is saying, oh wow, looks happened in Leesburg, let's put 25,000 in Eustis, and we'll bring some big name ACDC to Eustis, and we'll grab 20, 30,000 people to come to our city. So I think we've got to make a decision what type of Bike Fest, what kind of event we want to have that week, or do we allow Eustis or Claremont to put in 25, 30,000, and then they say, since you got 300,000 people in Lake County, bring 50,000 to our city that week, or do we say Leesburg, we want to still be the premier event that week and make sure people stay in our city? Because I saw a big drop off, I saw a big, the entertainment was not what it was, and it's probably because if I'm the organizer, do I want to spend 25,000 on headliners? Because I don't charge you. You can watch a concert for free, so there's no guarantee anybody's going to pay $1 for anything. So I think we must decide as a commission, do we support Bike Fest? Do we allow other cities to take advantage of what we built for 25 years? So, I mean, that's just my, and do you want to spend 10,000 extra to do it, or do you want to take 10 and maybe the partnership says, let's go to third tier entertainment, and then it fizzles down in 10 years, and then Bike Fest now is in use of Claremont as opposed to Leesburg. Because if I'm the organizer, that's what I'll be looking at. If it doesn't make me money, do I really want to take the time and effort in? So,
I kind of agree with Commissioner Christian on that too, and I've seen, and I know the partnership, there's a perception out there that they take money or whatever, and they're not good for Leesburg by some people in Leesburg. But I'll tell you from my perspective personally that a lot of the things that have been an attraction for me to Leesburg, whether it's it's been something related to the Center for the Arts, or back when the partnership ran that, generally, or the whether it was a music thing, an art thing, the market, a fish fry, whatever those things are that make Leesburg a place where you say this is a nice place to live. A lot of that comes from the Leesburg Partnership, and you take those things away, even you take those things away, Leesburg's not the same. It doesn't have the same atmosphere from an activity standpoint, and so I think the partnership does a lot. And I think there's some value to to it from what Commissioner Christian is saying, is that do we want to have the Leesburg Partnership continue to provide those things, and do we need to do anything to even help more, possibly, so that it maintains? Because a lot of the things that we have or that they do, the market doesn't, from what I understand, the market doesn't pay for itself from the partnership. They lose money on that. So we wouldn't have them, we wouldn't have the market there. A Christmas stroll or whatever those things are going to be, those don't make money, and the partnership does those events too. Now, maybe they got compensated from this, but the people that work the Leesburg Partnership are at the West Leesburg CDC Juneteenth celebration, setting that up, doing garbage and doing things there as well. I don't know if they got paid anything extra for that. So they're doing those things. They help with so many events. If you go to the Leesburg Partnership and you say, we're having an event, and can you help us? They'll pitch in and they'll help. So there's a lot that they do. And if you take the Leesburg Partnership away, or you say, okay, look, you're on your own, and you go make your money and make it work on your own money wise, they'll probably drop some events, and we may eventually lose the partnership, or at least a lot of what they do. And so then you're going to be looking at, okay, well, now we've lost these things, what do we do? Well, you're going to end up creating a redevelopment department in the city of Leesburg to do the same things that the partnership does. And now you're talking about probably having a $250,000 a year budget or something to do the same things that that the Leesburg Partnership are doing, that you would want to have in the city. So, that's a drop in the bucket for what, if without the partnership, of what the city of Leesburg would have to pay to staff, to have a department head, to have staffing, and to be able to pay people to run these events. So I could sit and look at the numbers and say, partnership, bring us in your numbers. We want to look at your budget and see where your money's going and everything. But I look at that, and I look at the value of what the Leesburg gets and out of the events that they do, and I think I'm hearing Commissioner Christian say that that they do good things, and maybe we need to make sure that they continue to be able to do good things.
And maybe they may need to come in, because we haven't heard from them in a while. And I think Commissioner Hurd, you are representative, right? So he may be able to speak inside, what's really,
Yeah. And maybe people aren't going to like this, and they'll say, I wish Bob Bonin never looked at the internet on this. But when I looked at coming to Leesburg, and I was offered I knew I had the potential to get a job here in Leesburg to open an office for a Central Florida law firm. And there were different places I could have gone to work for that firm in Central Florida, including Orlando. And I go on the internet and I say, what's this Leesburg city? And so I click, and so on Leesburg, and the pictures that pop up are the fish fry. And so this is my personal story. So I see people at this fish fry in Leesburg having a good time, and I was like, well, let me find out some more about this city. And that right there was the hook to get me to find out more. And that's my own personal story, but that's the Leesburg Partnership.
But there is nothing to say that the Leesburg Partnership can't come up with a better way to run the Bike Fest, and can't come up with a better way than to tell us, okay, we need $25,000. Up, we're short. Let us sell liquor at the 4th of July. Up, we're short. Let us have another $20,000. I mean, there's got to be, and being in business, that you have got to review things on a regular basis.
Well, I think so, and but that's what Mr. Christian is saying too. One way to run the business is to say, okay, let's cut. We're not making as much money, so let's go from tier 1 entertainers to tier 2 entertainers, because that's our budget. And the other way to go is to say, look, we got to spend more money because we're dropping in our quality of entertainment, and so when you look at your business, and I don't know the answer. Is it to go the 3rd tier, say, okay, partnership, we can't help you, go to your 3rd tier or whatever you got to do? Or do you say, we got to reinvest back in this because now we do have people competing with this event and get a bigger attraction here? Not that that's the answer,
No,
but sometimes you have to spend more money to make that business
Additionally, the city of Leesburg could probably take this a lot better had not all the vendors for Bike Fest been from out of Leesburg, and many of them out of the county. I think that should be turned back over to the city of Leesburg to allow the Leesburg vendors to take part of this, as well as the charities.
I'm all about local business, but they've tried that, and they still work with any local business that wants to be a vendor. I mean, they still do it. I mean, not this year before Gourmet Today. So we want to be a vendor, and they had a booth down there. They go out of their way to help people. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have the vendors in Leesburg for an event that size.
George and Lisa sell popcorn. They sell popcorn on Saturday, the market every Saturday, and they sell popcorn at the Bike Fest.
And Commissioner Denson, as a vendor trying to have people come from Eatonville, I said, go talk to Joe. But when you look at the price, most local vendors, they do this on this is a hobby. And these vendors, they're doing, this is their job. And
That's right.
they come, they can afford to pay. So I think what we can do as a city is maybe tell people, hey, you go a little further down and put your hot dog stand up, your popcorn. But I think from the vendor, when you're saying, I'm the one responsible for the billboards, I'm the one responsible for paying for the national advertisement, and then when a guy comes and says, I'm going to open me a pop shop, I didn't pay for any entertainment, any vendors, but you got all the liability. So as the organizer, I'm going to look at myself and say, is it worth it? If I'm losing 50,000 of my people that I've marketed for 20 years and they go 14 miles up the road. So at that point, you have to evaluate and say, is this worth it? I mean, can I walk around and say, I planned it for a year, instead of me bringing in 80,000, now I profit 40,000. Is that worth it? So I think that's a partnership decision, but I think, as the mayor said, as a city, I want to make sure we do our part to make sure that I think Bike Fest is good for Leesburg and Lake County. Maybe we talk to the county more, maybe we find out, because this is a regional, so I think maybe more regional dollars could also help us, and that maybe where the city and the parks can go together, so we can pull in some more dollars to help offset that cost. And we've had this discussion ever since I've been on the commission.
Every year.
And it goes, it changes, fluctuates, and again, Mr. Commissioner Hurley, he's our representative on the board.
Y'all won't let me talk.
I'm trying, man.
Y'all ain't shut up yet. I'm just waiting. I'll say something about 7.
No, man.
Well, first off, I mean, everything. A lot that could be that I would say, these two have already said. But one of the things I'll touch on is, you mentioned from an economic development standpoint. If you look at what Bike Fest brings into the city of Leesburg,
I've heard this a lot. What does it bring in?
every restaurant, that's what it brings in. Every
Many of the
hotel.
restaurants
No,
closed
listen,
during
listen.
Bike Fest.
No, they don't. The
Yes,
four
they
on
do.
the four on Main Street might, but you name me one restaurant that closes.
Turner's.
Turner's won't let me in there because I wear a baseball cap. I could never walk into Turner's again, and I don't care.
That's got nothing to do with Bike
No,
Fest
they
and
don't-
having
yes, it
closed
does.
down.
They don't want to. They don't want that clientele. That's a choice they made. They don't have to close. They don't want to. Every restaurant's been there before Turner's went there, succeeded when Bike Fest came in there, and they made most of their money to help them through there. But look at what it does economically for every store, every restaurant, every gas station, period. And then look on the regional, what it does for the surrounding cities and for the surrounding, for the county as a whole. And then look at every single group. We get that list every year that the partnership provides to us of all the people. My church youth group, his men of distinction, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the little, I can't remember what the organization is. They provide eyeglasses for little kids that their parents can't afford eyeglasses. And the partnership lets all those groups work these different venues, whether they're selling beer, the Kiwanis, all these groups that give money to us. They give money to us to pay for our playgrounds, to pay for our splash pads, that stroke us out $20,000 checks. The partnership lets them sit down there and sweat their butts off during Bike Week and sell beer to raise that money they give us. And then, hold it, Bob. And then you take in, it's not Bike Week. That's annually. That's all encompassing. And how, and I'm gonna say this, and this is not in a negative way, but look what we pay our PIO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because we're trying to get somebody to help us get on the map and to help us with marketing and to help us, well, for that, just take that as an advertising PIO guy. For that, look what they're bringing into the city. And if you were to look at that number and see the results, and the bottom line, I believe in it, I'm going to support it, but I really wish that it was a joint thing that all of us agreed. And the mayor has hit it so perfect. Considering and what Commissioner Chris said, how much we could lose if they don't want to step up. And the fact that it is an organization that's mostly run by volunteers in our community, and this is the people that are movers and shakers. And what I mean by that, they're involved. They don't just read the newspaper, get on Facebook and complain, but they actually volunteer to make this city run. And then we're going to tell all those volunteers, forget Joe Shipes, who cares what Uncle Joe wants? We're going to tell all those people that dedicate themselves day and night to volunteer and put all these things together. We don't think that, your efforts are worth another $10,000 from our big budget, so we're not going to cut it for you. And I'm personally not going to tell them that.
All I ask is that the partnership go through and revamp some of their policies, just
Okay.
like we would have to do.
But what policies?
How they're making money, why they're not making money,
Well,
And the local vendors.
the local vendors.
And it could be, we select 2 local vendors and we give them space at a discounted rate. I mean, I think that's something the city manager can talk to them about. We want to see local vendors involved. Can you carve out 2 spots and give discounted rates every year to 2, 3 local?
But here's the deal, and being a guy, I don't know, I think I'm the only biker in the group.
Yeah.
I've been from Sturgis to Carolina. I've been to them. I love them. The same people work these things, and they, I don't know how to word it, but they bring something to a vendor will bring something to the bike week that I can't find in Leesburg any other time. Whether it's an accessory for my motorcycle, a tuning kit, it's not the guy selling popcorn and beer and hamburgers. I go to bike weeks because there's things that I can't see or get unless I go to a motorcycle event. And so you may have 1 or 2 motorcycle shops around Lake County that could come and contribute something, but these vendors are specialty vendors, and surely there's a lot of t-shirt guys and all that kind of junk, but there's a group that provide a lot of stuff that you're not just going to get on a local market. And that's really the truth. And that's why I don't think you should offer a lot of that. They're used to paying for that space because they make it. So I don't have a problem. And when I go, to our next meeting, I have no problem expressing, the commission's concern, expressing the struggle we had to get them the money, and ask them to do it. I think the only thing I want to caution us is we just went through hell 2 years ago. Remember that? With everybody fired up. We had to have a special city meeting because of the partnership. And I don't want to get this that now we're all worried about the partnership and start that snowball again, and then everybody's fighting and the city, just says, hey man, we're just getting tired of this. Every time we turn around, we're having to fight for all the good stuff we do because we ask you for 40,000.
Only one of you have mentioned the fact that this helps the county and the region, correct?
I mentioned it.
So where is the tourist money from the county
The
coming?
county gives them money.
They get more money. They give more money to Bike Fest than any other event. in the
Okay,
county.
if you add that up and how much the city gives them and other organizations, how much are we talking about here that the partnership is getting?
So they get a lot for Bike Fest. Frankly, but the problem is, and this is a very good point, that they make a lot of money on Bike Fest. It's a money-making event. And we can cut that budget in half, and they're going to make just as much money off Bike Fest. But what they're not going to do is go have the Saturday morning market.
4th of July.
They're not going to do, 4th of July. They're not going to do the Christmas stroll. They're not going to take that money and then spend it on other events. Because when you look at, they're not making very much money at the end of the year. If any, some years they make none. I think the best year they make 20 or 30 grand, which, they have to have some reserves for bad ones like this, which is why I'm a little skeptical about subsidizing one bad event. We'll look at it. But, that's what's going to happen. Is they take this money and they use it on other events. So we can cut it, but Bike Fest isn't what's going away. It's all the other stuff.
But
that
the
everyone
other side
likes.
too that you're hitting on, and that is true. If you ever sit down with them and be a representative, if you look at their budget, if they ever were to get hammered one year, and what I mean by hammered is if we had bad weather, hurricanes or anything like that, they lay out so much money in advance for all the things that are coming, whether it's the catering or whether it's the bands or all the tents they rent and all that. They lay out a ton of money. And if they ever were so unlucky one year, it literally could wipe them out. Wipe them out, where there's no recovery from it. So
is another 20 or 30,000 from the city going to save them from that situation?
heck no. No.
Yeah, but I think this number mostly, how much of this do we actually get back from billing for services?
And how much do we underbill?
That's the what was the number?
Bike Fest.
We had Bike Fest, our expense was about 100 grand, and we got back
38. 34.
38.
So they get a lot more from the city than just that
So
$38,000.
it was about a 60 grand subsidy.
Yes.
But if the city did that same event, we would still have to pay people, our staff, to go out there and do it.
For us to do a Bike Fest type
Yeah,
event?
we would be paying our
Yeah,
people
easily stated.
Yeah, more than that. I mean, I'm talking about the support staff that we provide.
For the local and regional impact that the city loses on the 60 grand, and it's probably even a little more than that if we're really going to count it up. You got the 60 grand right off the top, then you got the facility that and the utilities we pay over there. That's probably another 50 grand. So there's probably about $100,000 that the city subsidizes with the partnership. Rough number. But $100,000 for the economic impact to the city and the region, $100,000 is not a whole lot. That's why the staff recommendation is we need to keep it where it's at. I'm sure Joe's going to want to talk to me this year, and that's going to leak up to you, and I think you play that by ear. But at this stage, I certainly wouldn't change the funding mechanism where it's at right now. I wouldn't go down, wouldn't go up, and I definitely wouldn't go up until you guys had a conversation with Joe. And I think that your conversation's probably better with Joe and the partnership board than it is amongst yourselves at this stage.
So we just spent a half hour talking about the very first item.
Very first item.
I know.
It's gonna be a long night.
Somebody go to sleep in bed?
We can skip over everything else if you want.
That's why we got snacks, people. Andy, I told you, it ain't gonna be quick. Get the snacks.
So for now, it sounds like the general consensus is we'll keep the funding as it is. And
Before we got onto that, what I was going to say back to the West Leesburg CDC, one observation I had was with the Juneteenth that they had. I don't know if we can or if we should do anything more to try to help that event become a little more known or somehow, and so they're not on the list there, although you gave them something off the list, apparently.
between the Martin Luther King and the gala, and there are like about 3 things we gave them. Gave CDC.
And I don't know. I would just,
specific. I'd support
Maybe another.
yeah, and I don't know. Maybe that's something for later or something.
I think it's more internal.
Is it internal?
Than anything else? I mean, because you didn't advertise on this side at all. I think that CDC is really the Black Heritage Festival that Minute Distinction does for that. And that's what I'm saying. The organizer, when you pay out $600 for a band to come, and of course sponsorship dollars don't come from Budweiser or Coca-Cola, so you're basically dealing with local sponsors. West Leesburg, I think the same thing for the CDC, dealing with local, sponsors. You don't get, the $10,000 sponsorship. So, but I think from Juneteenth, those events, I think you had a transition from Ms. Barry and leadership. I think
That's what- that was
I
a
think that's the
transition this year.
biggest problem with that one. Not that the city shouldn't specifically they have a specific event, but I think with our PIO and other people, involved, I think that may assist them as well.
They do some
getting the word out.
You good for civic funding for now?
For now.
Okay. All right, so off into the general fund for fiscal year 18. I wanted to pick up the general fund with where we ended last night. Obviously appreciate, and the employees appreciate the action the commission took last night. On the general fund note, there's an increase there of $240,000. Your budget does not reflect that change that was voted on last night. However, based on these recommendations to modify the budget, you have a net revenue budget. So the bottom line is the same, but a couple little things inside would be different. So here is essentially how we would recommend to fund the action taken last night. Number one, there are 2 positions that we recommend not to fund. That's in the Public Works Department. It saves these amounts. There's about $15,000 in the fire operating expenses that we can reduce on fuels and some utilities. And you'll see a repeat in utilities, and let me explain this up front. Utilities have seen a reduction across the city. The lion's share is going to be in the street light number, which you see, where's the street light number? This next one. And frankly, I don't know where that number's at. That number is in your book at about $900,000. We're on course to be at about $800,000. So right off the bat, there looks like there could be $100,000 of cushion in that number. So let me explain why there's a variance in that number. we've reduced electric rates, and B, most recently, the commission passed an ordinance that gave a special utility rate to street lights, which really significantly reduced our price. However, we've got 3 projects or so where we're going to dump right on top. The Dixie project, which is going to come into play when we put in the new streetlights and do the associated improvements out there on 441-27. There's going to be some additional lights. So while we're saving, we're also putting stuff back in. Now, I'm pretty sure there's going to be still a savings there, but I don't know what that gap is going to be. So I think there's a little variance in there. We can do 2 things. We can A, take more money out of it and have a little bit more risky of a number, and how we would subsidize that is do less street paving and then do it a budget adjustment in the course of the year. So we would do less street paving and use more local option revenue to cover our street light expenses if we shifted that number down. Or you keep that number in there and then you have the excess at the end of the year. So I think both are foreseeable. I think at this stage, if you wanted to come up with other expenses within a margin of $50,000 to $75,000 in the general fund, I'm flat out, that's the number I would go to for you. I would do that and then play the waiting game and see how that expense goes through the end of the year, and then jump over to local option if we took too much out of it. So,
Which ad valorem number are you using?
and I'm not using the ad valorem number. I'm losing the local option gas tax number.
No, I mean for the budget.
Oh, it's the ad valorem is the same,
The same.
but it's a tax increase. I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, so you're going to jump to that before we get too deep into expenses?
Yes, I do it right up front. Give me about 3 slides.
Okay.
Before you move on, the 3 new police officers, is that part of the grant that has been applied for?
Yes. Let me get to that next.
Okay.
So we hit these positions. We hit the operating on streets and utilities. The next is the police officers. We programmed 6 new police officers in the fiscal year 18 budget. Those were paid for 2 ways. 3 new police officers fully funded from October 1 at the start of the fiscal year that we fully pay for. That cost was about $175,000. We also applied for the federal COPS grant. That grant went in yesterday, hit the deadline. Our COPS grant is in. We should know in 3 to 4 months, which is going to put us a little bit into the fiscal year, if we get funded for that. We requested funding to start on that in April, but it's the 3-year cycle of funding. We paid 25% for the 3 years. And then I think our commitment is 1 or 2 years after the grant cycle, which I felt comfortable with, because if we did get the grant, hopefully we'll see some more revenue out there. So what we did do now for this process to find money is, instead of funding 3 new police officers on our own, we push those back to April, and that saves us that 6 months. I feel comfortable in doing that because I think we'll see a little bit of growth, and we'll talk about growth a little in a little bit, which justifies that action. So essentially, we've taken, to get the $88,000 in saving, we've taken the 6 officers, 3 were on the grant, and then the 3 that we were paying for, we push everything back to April.
Okay.
So we delay that a little bit. We reduced a little bit of facilities operating expenses. That's painting and some various different things that we defer a little bit of maintenance. And then the last one is we reduced the chemicals from the Venetian Gardens budget, with the assumption as we move forward with the community center, the Venetian Gardens pool will close probably sometime January, February-ish, and then that leaves the summer open where we can reduce that chemical expense. So add the numbers up, 240. The action you took last night is balanced. Moving along into the general fund. To jump into revenue, bottom line on revenues, we start with state share. We see about a 3% growth on our revenues. Our local option sales tax is up just a little bit. Our general revenue sharing from the state is up. The local DST is up a little bit. On the gas side, you see the numbers there. The big down one is, we just talked about the local option gap. That's down $100 grand. A lot of that's due in part to the fuel being low in price. So when that tax can be pretty elastic based on the economy and where the fuel rate is. So the general state revenues about 3% growth, about 150,000 new dollars. On our other general revenues, taxes and the like, again, we're sitting there right about 3% at about an $830,000 increase. The change in that is our ad valorem taxes at about 4%. I'll break this number down for you in a second. Licenses, intergovernmental revenue. I think everything's pretty modest. A couple of little dips in there. I don't think of significance. This number, that's probably just due to transfer reductions. So that's our own internal number that we've reduced. For example, you'll note I think the electric fund number's down about another $250,000, so that's good. So in the past year, about 3 or 4 years now, I think total of the electric transfer is down about 1.2 million. So that's a really good number. 1.2 million, that equals about $2.25 in your base rate off per thousand a month. So that's a big shift just in transfer alone. So those numbers, it's not crazy huge, but in the 3% window where we're striving to be on most everything. So your picture of what all the monies look like, and again, your lion's share is still that 38% other, which is your transfers. So that we're still heavily reliant on that. That little wedge has gotten smaller, which is good, and this one comes up. From a purely governmental standpoint, you want that. You want your general fund to fund on general revenues and not be overly reliant on your utilities. I think that's a good picture. So, to ad valorem taxes. In my conversations with each of you, based on different things where you've been, frankly, obviously this is a workshop, you're all over the place. So I gave you lots of options. I gave you a tax recommendation. The first little group of chart here, our total taxable value for 18, $1.2 billion. That's up about 71 million. That's a 5% change. What does that equal in dollars? I'm going to jump down to the option number 1 now. If you go with the current rate of 4.2147 is our current millage rate, you end up with a reduction in your ad valorem of about $18,000.
That's not our current rate.
Yeah, I see current. That's rollback. Okay, rollback would be a reduction in your millage rate to 4.2147. So that's the rollback rate. So bring in the same tax money that you did last year. To do that with growth, your millage rate reduces. My apologies. That's your rollback rate. That's your no tax increase rate. And what you do is you lose about $18,000. If you go with the same rate, which is the 4.2678 number, you have a tax increase of $121,000. Now, with some of the other things we've talked about, need for new cops, changes we made last night, I put in 2 more numbers that would bring in for you those differences. The cop number of about 170,000. The difference, by the way, between this number and this number, about 170, and this number, again, about 170. And so we came up, for sake of argument, a 4.4 mil and a 4.46 mil. So not a whole lot of difference. What we will need to do next week, and I think this is why this will be a good discussion, is we do need to set, as always, the DR 420, and we need to set the maximum millage rate. We need to get that to the tax collector's office so we can get our trim notices out. So next week, or on the 24th, we're going to have the DR 420 where to preliminarily set the millage rate. That's the rate you can tax up to, but not above, but you can always drop below it. Our recommendation really is to stay at the current rate, which is a minor increase. here are some scenarios. I still think with any kind of tax increase that you do, you should try to offset it with a reciprocal reduction in your electric rate. So every time we ink up the tax rate, I think we need to reduce our reliability on the general fund. In past years, we've been able to actually reduce it and then still have some money go back in people's pockets. This year, I don't see that happening, but we can closely mitigate it. So this block of areas shows kind of the basic data that you need. The savings block is for every $500,000 you get in the electric fund, you save about $113 per thousand on that basic residential electric rate. Remember, I think the number was about 65% of our electric customers use 1,000 kilowatts or less a month. So this is the lion's share of our customer. Right now, our electric rate is $115.09. When we talk about electric rates in a couple of more meetings, I'll give you a breakdown of where that went. Roughly, we've gone from $138. We were going to plan to go up to as high as $142. We got the rate down to about $105 for a good, I think, about 9 months when we were returning a lot of the over recoveries, and now we've slid back twice a little bit to 115. It's looking like we'll stabilize about there. We might see the power cost slip up a little bit, but I think we found a little bit of a home here at about the 115 level. So that's electric rate numbers. Now let's compare those to tax numbers. Our median house in Leesburg is about a value of $125,000. In fiscal year 17, if you had a house of about $125,000, less 50 homestead exemption, you'd have taxes of about $320 at the current millage rate. Assuming we had a little bit of growth, as we showed you, you're going to be capped. Say you have 3% growth on that house, your value is now going to go up to $128,750. So you're taxed at that value. So at the millage rate, your number would be this. So you're looking at a tax bill increase. Now I'm starting to wonder if I did that. What was our existing millage rate? I think I did that wrong. What was it last year?
That's it. 4.267.
4.2678? No, I thought that was what we were recommending.
It is.
To maintain it.
Yeah, I did this wrong. Because this number here, this number here figures. This number here, this shouldn't be multiplied by this. It should be the existing one, which is 4.2147, right? That's the rollback rate. Okay, got it. My apologies. I did it right. Like so many numbers rolling through my head. Okay, so this chart is right then. So in essence, if you go with the proposed rate, which is the same rate, obviously, same rate, this times this is the same rate, tax increase, your tax increase is $16. We have, in our estimation, about $400,000 in the electric fund that you can use that we are projected in your budget as a surplus after we do the electric payroll increases. And then there's the other issues of when we redo the allocations, there'll be another 60 or so grand. So of the $500,000 plus or minus, there's about 400,000 at this stage that we can mess around with for rate reduction. So if you provide this maximum rate reduction, that's a reduction of 90 cents per month. Then you look at taking that off your rate. So now you're looking at 114. The 90 cents a month times 12 is $10.78. So basically you get this minus this. If you go with the current rate, you're looking at an overall combined tax increase lesser of $5. So then if you start playing around with the millage rates for purposes of discussion to create the additional 170 and 240 in the general fund, that would give you additional funds to fund other projects or what have you, and you still reduce the electric rate by 400,000, then instead of a larger increase as shown up here or here, you subtract it from here. So 100 to get 100. So in English, to get an extra 170,000 in the general fund budget, it's going to cost the typical taxpayer about 18 bucks or 19 bucks. If you want 240,000 extra, that's going to cost typical taxpayer about 20 bucks. Oh, by the way, always want to go back to, that's where I think we can get the electric rate come October 1. That compares to Seco at 112 and Duke at 121. Duke includes a 6% franchise fees. Commissioner Roebuck, I think that's where you were jumping to a minute ago.
Yes, thank you. And I'll just point out, because we talked about this a lot at the League of Cities on the Finance and Tax Committee, that on the ballot next year is going to be a measure that would increase the homestead exemption from 100,000 to 125,000, and it's going to pass because nobody's going to vote not to give themselves a tax cut. That would reduce our revenue by about $275,000 from the spreadsheet.
That would
sent.
275. That would be effective in That would be
Next
effective
year.
No, the vote that goes on referendum this
In
November,
18.
so it would be effective 19. Yes.
Yeah, so we've got that. Just I think it's important to remember we got that staring in our face. If that, for instance, if that was this year, we'd have to go up to about roughly like a 4.5 to capture 275,000 based on those numbers, just to stay steady with revenue. So at some point in the future, thanks to the legislature, we will have to raise taxes to stay the same.
And
So-
you're right, that will pass.
So for sake of discussion, again, our staff recommendation is we keep the current millage rate, and then set the DR 420 at that and have further discussions, depending on how much flexibility you want in the general fund for an additional tax increase at these levels. I think at the end of the day, sticking with your existing rate, while it is an increase, we can offset it and we can really minimize the impact. Moving into expenses now, just in a summary, everything typically looks pretty much the same. Last year, or 17, the budget was about $23.4 million. This year, about $24.3. That's an $831,000 increase, which includes the actions that we did last night. So that's a 3.5% increase. And just, when you look at the quick percentage changes amongst the general fund service numbers, we see the lion's share of our money, again, typically going to police, fire, public works, and, a nice increase. Although that the $1.7 million, $1.4 million numbers at library and over here, not huge increases, but we do start sliding a little bit more money to recreation. But most of the other places stay about the
What is
same.
that drop in the executive?
The drop in the executive is, in past years, we've used about that $500,000 to go to fund capital. So if we have excess general fund money, the executive budget would have the transfer for capital monies that would go into the capital fund to do projects. This year, the general funds for capital projects isn't contributing anything, hence the reason I put that number up on those slides last night.
What's the recreation increase in salaries?
The recreation increases salaries.
The recreation aid was added.
The recreation aid for the splash pad.
Some of the utilities for the splash pad.
And some personnel issues in there.
It's a lot of splash
Right.
pads, I remember.
Mostly splash pad stuff, but then I think we augmented the revenues a little
Okay.
bit too, but
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
it's negligible.
Yeah. The one thing, and this is minor, but I think it needs to be addressed at some point, is the commission salaries in Leesburg are higher than anywhere in Lake County by a pretty good amount. And I'd like to see it at least change where we quit getting the increases every year and just fix it, because we're getting double what a lot of places are. And I know we're bigger, but I think from optically, I just don't think it looks good for us to keep getting raises.
I was going to put in for double. I gave everybody else one.
Yeah, on that note, and let me double check on that. I don't know where the commission wants to go. I think you have a charter referendum.
No,
That is it
it's not.
charter?
That's
Is it
what
ordinance?
They said last year, and it's not. It's
Is it ordinance?
Yeah.
So if it's ordinance, that's fixable.
I mean, someone needs to verify.
I got to
that,
double
but I
check
think the
again.
charter
Did we?
is.
And I said that last year, and we
Yeah.
checked, and
I
it
thought we
is.
checked, yeah.
I mean,
and
maybe
it's-
I'm wrong.
I can't remember if it's
So,
ordinance
it
or
just,
charter.
It just bothers me. When
But you have an
something like
ordinance. You either have an order or a charter
Yeah.
that says if you give an increase to the general employees, the commission gets the same. If that's done by charter, you do have to modify
this. Well, I
that.
don't want to modify the charter because that would cost way more than any savings.
I mean,
by
Fred's not
$1,000.
here, so my suggestion would be is the commission doesn't want to, if you guys don't want to give yourself something, I don't think that would be challenged, but, you know, technically, if you got to change the charter, you got to go to a referendum. If it's ordinance, it just is a matter of changing the ordinance.
That's my feeling.
So let me break these numbers down into, as we go, just look at cash position a little bit. We looked at this a little bit last night. We see growth in this number. Remember, the decline here is the $6 million that we reserved. So really, we had this number, even though it looks like there's a decline, it's a self-imposed decline because that was the excess money that we cut off to reserve for Venetian Gardens. So remember, you've really got the 9.9 plus, I think it was 6.4 that we put away. So cash position, you're still looking very good. And again, you saw this chart last night. I think this was the 5% chart. So I crossed the charts when I stuck this in here. So the 3% chart was more reflective. So you've got a little bit more money here in the out years. So as far as a forecast, I think that's a stable forecast. And now we move into expenses. City Commission, again, your expenses are about the same. Your personnel increases and trying to cover your travel increases there. And are there any questions in
What was
particular?
the office supply number? It went from 0 to 7,500.
Chairs.
Yeah, chairs in here.
I guess the chairs are.
What's wrong with those chairs?
They're kind of old. We targeted those this morning.
Yeah, we almost cut those.
I think the chairs are fine. I mean, I used to sit out there for many meetings. So the chamber uses them for monthly meetings. I love those chairs.
Executive, again, pretty much the big change in there was shifting of the funds, and then that's reflective of raises. Is pretty much the only difference in executive,
This is PIO.
and PIO is in there as well.
And which one?
This is-
Executive includes city manager's office and PIO.
This is just PIO and Lakefront.
No, that's just
Yeah,
Lakefront,
that's just
right?
that division,
I
and
got.
PIO,
I'm jumping
yeah.
ahead. That's the next slide.
So, again, I don't get the Lakefront TV number. I think that's. I don't believe we get that value out of it when the county has one that we could just be paying like a quarter of that to be on. I mean, I know it's nice that we can all go on TV anytime we want to, but for $100,000, I'd rather hire a marketing firm and actually go out and market the city and do things. I mean, the idea that people watch public access TV nowadays, I think that's very dated, and just.
It is, but don't we have a report that shows that they actually do? I mean, a actual.
I've never
physical
seen one.
report? But I'm asking.
Yeah.
A report on.
Viewership. No, aren't we able to track the viewership? See if we got 6 people, 60 or 6,000?
And within the city limits.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that
I don't
one.
care if they're in different county watching it.
Well, then you just contradict yourself on everything else, because when we're talking about the partnership, you're talking about what it does and how it attracts and how it benefits globally. So if it helps to varies, then it's going to trickle over to us as well, because we're
I
going to
didn't
draw
make that
from them.
argument, but,
Huh?
I didn't make that argument, but and if again, I'm going to bring up if we're going to keep it, we should competitively bid it like we do everything else in the world.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, that if there's something we can do to get more value out of what we're,
Yeah,
What
I mean,
we
I
got
think that
there.
would at least be a step in the right direction. And we may not change anything. It's entirely possible, but we don't even know what other options are out there.
Well, and I don't have a problem with that, because last year I did oppose it,
Yeah.
and I had a reason I opposed it. Last year was because they had stepped up and we had done that, and it's not fair just as soon as they get established. But I think they've proved themselves. I mean, I really do. And I think that they can prove what they've done. And I don't think, I mean, I only want to say this. I don't have a problem, I mean, it's been, 3 years now? So I don't have a problem with us saying, let's bid it out. I do have a problem pie in the sky people coming in to bid. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I decide, hey, I'm gonna run, like, I bid in it.
They obviously have to be qualified.
That's what I'm
to
saying.
do it,
I
yeah.
wanna make sure if
Right.
we allow somebody that there's, I don't know how you prove that, that's what I'm
You
saying.
have to have experience.
But, I mean, you know.
I mean, and Dr. Anna Marie had prior experience
She
with
does,
running
right.
a TV station when she came
I
in.
just, you know what I'm saying, I just don't wanna make sure it's some,
Yeah, we don't want
we
you
let
running
just
it.
any, no, man, it'd be all about me. But I do think there's a lot of benefits to it, and I personally still believe in Anne Marie. I think she's doing a great job.
Executive Department, any questions there?
I want you, Al, to sell me on the PIO.
The PIO has been a directive of the City Commission.
I know why we got him.
I think the PIO does provide some value. The PIO does provide some pomp. This PIO does provide some networking. The PIO provides some information and advertising, press releases, and another source of dissemination of information about the city. And in most past years, the City Commission has wanted that position filled.
I agree. I fought for it. We pay more for that, basically, than we do Lakefront TV. I'm just asking you to
You
justify.
pay about the same. You pay about the same for the PIO as you do Lakefront TV. And most of those costs are defrayed into your utility funds. Do you know what?
No.
They're not?
Not anymore.
No, that's right.
Just
We
took
changed
that away.
that last
Yes.
year.
That's
You did
no
that.
longer.
I did.
I mean, what does anybody else?
Are we
have any-
getting $90,000
I
worth
think that's
of-
my question.
Yes.
I just don't. I want to know, what do you think in regards to that?
It would be one of the places I would cut if push comes to shove.
Because I personally,
I think we have to look into that. I really do. And yes, I know the commission asked for it, but are we getting what we asked for?
yeah. I think at some point soon we could have some discussion on that.
We can do that.
Whenever get some information together,
Yep.
see what you
And-
think.
And I do think if we're going to look at this, and if we're going to look at least opening up to bid Lakefront, I think we should, if you add them both up, we're spending what,
265.
265? I mean, what I'd want to see additionally is an RFP out there that we got a $250,000 a year budget for marketing the city of Leesburg. Bring a proposal. What can you do? Because that's what we're doing, and they may not have a better option, but
Well, I think when you look at it, you got 250,000, and probably some of your others have as well. But I've had discussion with Al about just a marketing program for Leesburg to market us, whether it's in Central Florida or South Florida, wherever we could attract people to come move to Leesburg, bring a business, and so if $250,000, we'd better serve to do something like that. I saw a couple weeks ago. Is it Eustis that's advertised or Eustis or Tiberias has a program. They have a marketing program. One of them does now because people are like, look, they're marketing their city there and TV advertising for come to. They might see it. It wasn't good advertising apparently. It was Eustis or Tiberias one. But anyway, I think Leesburg's. I would like to see us have a marketing plan, a marketing program that's put together, a marketing campaign that's put out to Central Florida for the opportunities that there are for Leesburg as a great place to live, affordable, housing that's available, how we're moving forward, and the things that we're doing. Try to attract people to come live here and more business. So.
and I know from one of these the FR8 conventions and other ones that there are companies that's all they do is market cities.
We can just call the villages and ask who does theirs. They got somebody doing a jam-up job. So,
They got unlimited money too, so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, soon
Well,
we
I
get that
just-
for free.
Al, my only thing is just I'm saying, you take Lakefront TV, it goes back to community, and I really think that's what Lakefront ties into. Whether they're doing shows for the high schools or the bands or the veterans or, you know, teen youth or, I mean, the you know, new restaurants, nightlife. I mean, Lakefront TV, to me, pushes us and sells us. And so I think we get our money's worth out of that. I get the little bitty press releases, you know, if you want to read it, you can read it. And I'm just like, I can't believe we pay somebody that kind of money to sit down and type up that 3 paragraph and push send on the computer to a bunch of people. That wasn't my idea, and I was a PIO for Tavares, so I don't know. I'd like to know. I'd like to brainstorm whether it's one-on-one with you, or if you wanted to do it with the commission at some point after you didn't get caught off guard and bombed by it. You know, if we could sit down and just address that maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Well, and I think too, to be fair, how we give him direction, that's what we want.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to just bomb him with this right now. I want him to be able to talk and get some information before we sit down and come up with something.
And I think, you know, from our standpoint, because you're the one who got to manage it, so I think, you know, it still should be a plan that should be presented to the commission. This is what I think, we talking about a marketing plan. I mean, I think if I'm paying that much money, I mean, we should get that in-house already. That should be being done as a marketing plan for the city of Leesburg. But I think how we given that kind of direction, that's what we want. And I think as Mayor saying, $250,000 do a marketing plan. I mean, if that was my job, I would be able to create a marketing plan for the city of Leesburg. But I think we haven't given that direction. And I think that's something we should probably say, give us a marketing plan.
I think we were pretty
I think
clear
we've
on
been
we
pretty good
wanted
on
to
that.
market us, and we wanted to get the press. We wanted somebody to really create a relationship to help kind of take some of the. I mean, the only thing that was being printed there for a while was the bad stuff, not the good stuff. You know.
And then
I
for
do
a
think
while
that-
before that, we had so much positive going into the newspapers, and now it's not even worth getting a newspaper.
I will say to be fair, and I'm not sold on the PIO, but I have noticed an uptick in stories, and you can tell because frequently they are our press releases
Right.
printed as a story because
That's
the papers
true.
don't have reporters.
That's true.
So
I don't.
now I'm not saying one or another, but I do think, to be fair, I think we are getting that benefit at least in the newspapers.
Well, I'm not making any decision. I'm just asking for some more information. At some point, a little dialogue.
Absolutely. City clerk's office, we did, the major change in city's clerk's offices, we did add a deputy clerk position.
We
Full
added-
time.
We added,
Oh, added. Okay.
yes.
So there's already an existing person, or is this for next year?
Nope, this will be for next year.
They're not gonna work anywhere else.
No, new position.
Do we?
It's a new full-time position.
Is there no opportunity to share?
We think the best resource is to bring in another position.
Okay.
We've held off for how many years now, Andy?
It's
3?
been about 3 years.
I'm killing her.
And when Andy first came on board, it really, you saw a major improvement. down
There's,
there.
you know, and there's, you know, I'm not gonna say there's an uptick, but Andy's been keeping it going down there for a while. And, you know, between vacancies and vacancies, Andy's gone, then the office is closed, so then we get a little bit of a backlog in records requests and these type of things. Andy's doing a great job. There is a little bit of delay, if you've noticed, in minutes, because Andy's been doing 80 million other things. I think we could fill it part-time. We've tried that internally, but then we just can't get cohesion between internal jobs going back and forth. So it's not a huge amount, and I think it'll be beneficial for Andy and the office.
I support it absolutely.
Elections, no change. We're going miscellaneous items. Randy, what are our miscellaneous? This is sellback of vacations and unemployment and these type of things.
And then just the transfer going away, the transfer for debt service, that's about it.
So we're actually at a decrease there.
Yeah.
Finance, financing on the accounting side, actually, we got a small reduction there. Pretty much everything's no change.
What do we repair, maintenance, in accounting? What is that?
It's on equipment, computers, items.
Okay.
Customer service, small change there, but pretty much everything's still in line.
So can you go back to accounting, please? It looks like we got rid of an accounting 1 position and an accounting 2. Is that what we did?
Yeah, that was an upgrade, I think, of an existing person.
So we just moved someone up? Okay.
On customer service, I'm assuming this postage is to mail out utility bills mostly.
And there's supposed to be an increase from what we're hearing.
Okay, yeah. Do we have a paperless option? We do.
We push that very hard.
Okay.
A lot of people
They want both. Can we charge for a bill? I know some companies do. Like they charge you $2 if you want a paper bill every month. I guess probably some people don't have access.
A lot of companies have eliminated
I guess that's probably more business size to the business side. Probably we got a lot of residents who probably can't access a computer. Yeah, that's
No, I don't think
true.
so.
Right. Yeah, you've seen it. The commercial side is pretty common, but probably not on the residential side. Okay.
Procurement, again, not too much change there.
Is that a replacement job that's out, or is that a new one?
That's a replacement.
Okay.
Warehouse, not too much change there.
Well, there's that capital in there.
The capital is the roofs, right?
No, it's repairing the walls. There's water coming in, so that's the joints need.
But we
to-
put the roofs over in electric, didn't we?
Yep.
What made the operating expenses go up? So
There's some additional minor furniture and equipment there.
Yeah, it's up, just a tick under about $4,500. Most of that's in the furniture line.
Which building are we repairing?
The
Warehouse.
Out of electric.
electric.
Oh, electric.
Yeah.
Nope.
But the
And so is there a transfer then to offset that? If it's electric?
No, that's where the warehouse is. It's in that building, so.
But you're using it for,
There's an allocation, so,
Yes, it'll be
there's a
allocated.
$198,000 allocation, so even though it's a $50,000,
yeah, that's what I meant.
it's a $50,000
not getting paid.
expense, but it ends up getting allocated.
Yeah, okay, that's
What's
what
the
I
hit to the
meant.
general fund on the warehouse? It's probably pretty small.
The warehouse is, it's like 96% allocated, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, okay.
96% allocated. So,
Yeah.
so of that bottom line number that you're looking at, only 4%.
Exactly.
Well, there's the number right there. So you're looking at a $198,000 budget, 9,300 of it hits the general fund. So it's pretty much paid for by the utilities. Human resources. I think human resources remains pretty much the same as well.
There.
What's the big increase in professional services? It's been going up steadily for the last couple of years.
Pre-employment check predominantly due to the increase in hiring the PD.
Gotcha.
So the rest
IT and GIS. I don't think we have anything of significance there. And GIS. All right, and then police. We're probably going to need to talk a little bit. Okay, police education receipts and impact fees, still pretty typical there. And then we jump into I missed
First
whole,
one, this-
there we go. So police. Police is a pretty significant impact, so let's spend a little time there, talk about some of our issues. You see a pretty significant increase in payroll. about $300,000. That actually, we'll find that'll go up a little bit with the reactions from last night. But the lion's share of that is the cost increase that we had originally projected. And again, that will kind of, again, be offset by pushing out the officers. The big changes basically in the police department are the additional officer costs, and the insurance number's gone up,
What's driving
and
the
your
big
retirement
insurance
number.
jump? It seems to be going up faster than the number of people you're adding.
Is that
It's the city's
it's
side
the
on contribution.
the city contribution?
It's gone up that significantly.
It's 500,000 that the city's contributing more in next year's budget.
Even and that is there goes along with the plan we talked about last night, or is there different?
No, because of the plan change we made last night. the
Okay,
city's-
so even with the increase in premiums, the city's taking a big hit.
Yes.
Wow.
So you're gonna see it everywhere.
Yeah, I guess just magnified.
Um,
Overtime. Why is shouldn't overtime be going down with more officers?
We're still struggling. We haven't ever got to the 65 number, so we're still low there.
What is the special pay?
The special pay is a through line. So when officers do off-duty things but represent the city, they get paid.
Okay.
So, for example, Walmart will ask for officers during the holidays, and there's a kind of actually it's a CBA issue on how they want it paid and then pass through.
They don't
So-
also get overtime on that, do they?
No, that's an additional duty, and the 57 represents a pass through. So
Thank
we
you.
should have a revenue line that matches that.
And why would retirement jump so much?
That's the increase in the from the actuarial report.
Wow.
It's almost 200 grand there. What percentage? We went from about 8% to 9% ish.
It's 13.26 in this budget. I think it was 9 maybe last year. It's a big increase though. Yeah, it was right around 9 and we went up to 13.26.
3-factor,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
3-factor in earnings.
3-factor. The thing I voted against.
Look, I will not argue that, I think about the benefit factor. I know we've had this conversation again, but every time we get a letter from an actuarial report that says it won't affect your increase, there you go, 90-13. Any other questions, please? And again, remember, police will be modified if you still want to move forward with it. And hearing not too much feedback from y'all, if we want to move forward with those positions, we're going to defer that till April to provide the savings. On fire,
Impact fees, if you don't mind. I just want to make everyone, we are spending money on the impact fees. We're buying the cars, a dog, but the 6 cars are right there.
right.
Impact fees, so that's good.
Actually, we can reduce, well, no, we'll still have that expense.
Yeah. But at least we have the money to use that.
On fire,
I didn't know we were collecting police. I'm
going
fees
backwards.
so I can pull the permit.
There's enough to buy the cars, so that's good.
on fire and personnel, kind of the same expenses. We had a little bit of a change in here with reference to the retirement. Again, there's about a $25,000 increase, and insurance, again, same issue, $50,000 increase. And on operations, although those remain pretty much the same, the significant, there's about a $50,000 increase, which is associated with replacement of SCBA equipment and breathing apparatus that needs to be changed out this fiscal year. Where was that? Where was that
Right
number?
here in the.
That was capital lease 4420
What their
on
retirement
page
percentage is.
104.
Their retirement percent. It didn't go up as
Well, they've always done a 3-factor.
much. They went to 26.3.
And now the special pay for fire, is that the same thing?
Yes. Is it? Yeah. No. That's paramedic and
So how have we
civils.
gone from 41,000 with more payroll in 2014-15 to 199,000 now?
We broke it out.
Okay, it was in that
It was
payroll.
under
Yeah, I
the
broke it
salaries.
out.
We just broke it out to make it easier.
Okay, got it.
I understand originally there were 3 additional firemen supposed to be added to this year's budget. What happened with those positions?
Did you request 3? We didn't fund them.
You didn't fund them. Are we gonna be able to operate with the 2-man teams on the trucks?
We have 3-man teams on the trucks. We go down to 2-man teams when we have absences.
Okay, how do we cover the absences?
We do with the overtime pay. That's why you see an increase there. Chief, where else do we?
Well, we talked about that last year, we definitely moved forward on that. One time we want to increase overtime on supply, and just left it as it is.
Are you comfortable with that?
We've had discussion on it.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to recommend you increase fire. I think you're covered adequately in fire. I think 80%, we're still at the same percentage. We've got 65% of our calls for our basic ALS or BLS that go outside the city limits, and you're in a situation where you're funding your non-incorporated areas with our service because the county ships their money elsewhere in the county. One of the things I wanted to review with you is the fire, and also with that regard too, I think we need to sit back and take a more global respect to, the impact that we'll have on the villages. Our core fire stations remain the Canal Station and the Griffin Station, with the peripheries being the airport and the Okahumpka Station, and both of those 2 stations greatly serve outside the city limits. With the villages moving in, hopefully, we close that deal with the 470 property, I think there's going to be a real opportunity there that some of our southern 27 services can hopefully get shifted over to the villages, hopefully reducing your need for service in the fire side through interlocal agreements, hopefully with the villages. That's yet to be determined. So if you were going to take the course now to increase your fire services by adding more personnel, I don't think that's the right step to take at this case. Again, because our basic services are our emergency services, and when we do have the fires, we have the coverage from all the other departments in the region. So I think you're erring to do that. Let me also go back and good news and bad news. One of the first things that the commission charged me with was trying to control our fire costs. These numbers are a little bit small. I can't even read them from here. But we came up, if you recall, with the fire sustainability plan. The first year before the fire sustainability plan was implemented, the fire department's budget was at $5.9 million, slated to increase to $6 million. When we were concerned, and one of the first initial things the commission asked me to do was task me with an examination of should we go to county services. Ultimately, we ended up with that answer being no. We thought our own fire services were better, but we did need to augment them with the fire assessment fee. So we did that. So we laid out a plan to try to minimize our costs at the fire department. Not add people, but reduce people. That's what the commission asked several years ago. So by adding people, that would be reducing or changing the course that was directed. And if that's where the commission wants to go and add more service, got it. But that's different than what you've asked me to do for the last few years. So where we're at is 5.9. We thought 6 million, 5.6, 5.6, 5 million, and then 4.8, and by 4.6 rather by fiscal year 18. Most of that plan was how we reduced those numbers. Remember, shifting out the ARF truck, attrition, and coming down to the level that we currently maintain. So let me compare that to where we've actually been. It's the good and bad. The good part of this is immediately we beat our goal by 4.2%. We beat our second goal again by 5.1%. And then again, by the first 3 years, we're pretty aggressive. These numbers were extremely aggressive because we had a whole lot more retirements and early retirements when we did the early retirement incentives and these type of things to reduce workforce and save money, which got us ahead of schedule. Last year, we started ticking up a little bit quicker than what we thought. This year, we're on another little uptick of 16.9% versus where we wanted to be in the fire assessment plan, our fire sustainability. Overall, I think the good news is we're still below the benchmark, 3.29 million over the course of those 6 fiscal years. We're at 3.26 million, so we're about minus 1% where we wanted to be. But I do think we need to watch the trend. The plan shows, this decrease to our low point, which is the coming fiscal year, and then I would assume from this point a growth at 3%. So what we see is the huge drop, and then a little bit coming up quicker. So if we maintain that at 3%, we'll be above where we want to be in out years. But I think as we get to these out years, we watch and we try to control where we're at by not adding firefighters. We're going to be okay. We're going to be, I think, within
Well,
at
let
least
me
in
just
the
say, you say the
envelope.
commission told you to reduce. I don't remember me voting to reduce.
No,
I think we were
I-
talking about maintaining and not going to $6-7 million. So I want a fire department that's safe, can do its job effectively. I don't want to depend on Fruitland Park, Clearmont, the county. As a resident of Leesburg, I expect if my house catches on fire, there's emergency service at the city of Leesburg, get to my house in a very quick time frame. So that's me. If that means adding a firefighter, keeping it where it is, that's where I want to be. So I'm not going to go on record and say I told you to reduce the fire department. I think don't have turnover because we got a good chief that can keep his guys with a good positive morale.
Well, I'd like to take credit for hiring that good chief.
Well, yeah, you take credit for it, but I think we minimize good department heads. I think we minimize the fact that if I got a good leader, then and my department's going to also help me have a good attitude toward the city if I'm underpaid or I see other things happening. So I know the chief gets beat up, and he's a good guy that says, yeah, we had discussion, as opposed to say, no, I can't live with this. So, and I know Al and Chief have a very good relationship, but I don't want to go on record and say I want to reduce the fire
I think
department.
that the commission as a whole had it. I think we can't underscore that discussion. The commission as a whole directed me to do a fire sustainability study.
Yeah, we said
The
that.
commission as a whole directed me to look at whether we wanted to go to county fire services. The commission as a whole determined that we should keep our fire department, put together a sustainability plan based on attrition, elimination of the ARC truck, and a couple other services. Based on all of that, we're about where we wanted to be, in my opinion, maybe a tick more expensive than where we need to be. It is my opinion that you don't need additional firefighters. Our number one service continues to be emergency medical response, which is also subsidized by the county. Our statistics show that on emergency response, we serve not only our community, but we're serving at a level of about, for every 10 calls outside the county, you're responding to 6, and you're subsidizing the county services on, remember, 80% of our service is EMS related. And on fire-related service, you're making, in my opinion, you're making it to your fire calls. It's a far smaller number, and when there is a fire, you do rely on other departments. That's the course.
Are we getting enough payback from the county for the calls that we handle for them?
We are getting the payback pursuant to the interlocal agreement.
Which we can open at any time.
No.
No, I thought there was a
Not at
30-day
any
notice.
time. I think they're in three-year intervals, and you can submit a letter, or you got something, if you think they're in violation of it, egregious
Okay. I thought
violation,
it was
you can
30 day.
petition to open it back up.
Well, that's something I certainly want to look at whenever the time is. They need to pay.
And we didn't mention this because we're not talking about capital purchases, but I mean, as far as ensuring that the police department or the fire department's where it needs to be, we've made improvements to station. I think, again, we talked last night about increases for them at the level of 5% for salary. We're talking about Kelly days and fixing them as far as FSLA issues and making their work conditions better. And we also got on slate a fire truck. So you put all those things in the hopper, I think we're taking care of the fire department.
Okay, I won't be here when the Villages finally comes in, but I have a problem, and as I get older and older, and I live in down 27, I have a problem with the Villages responding that far away to problems in South 27. So just being, no, I don't want to discuss it. Just right now, for whoever replaces me, I don't want that to happen.
Understand?
Thank you.
But you brought it up, and so let me remind you that you live in Legacy, and about a mile away from your house is a county station, and about another half-mile away is a city station. And then potentially, depending on how Village's growth is going to be, there could be a village station within another mile from your house.
Well, I don't mind Okahumpka County at last resort, but for the villages to get over to that area, I think it's going to be too long. Traffic's going to be increased.
My guess
in
is
5
you'll
to
have
7
3
years.
stations within your house that's closer than any Griffin station or the Canal station.
No, I'm talking about the station down there. I'm not even including these stations. So just,
But you heard what I said.
I heard
My
what you
guess is
said.
that you will have 3 stations at a build-out period within a 2.5-mile radius of your house. You'll probably have a village station, a city station, and a county station.
and you heard what I said,
I did.
that I would prefer the service come from Leesburg rather than for the villages to take over any of our personnel or anything else.
Understand.
That's it. And I was thinking, oh God, please be out of here.
No, just a little bit of change of opinion there, so
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Well, I mean, when we give a green light to 8,000 acres, say 55 plus, you're gonna get more EMS calls than you get fire calls, because you tell everybody on 27, let's bring 15,000 people, and everybody going 55 plus. So you can't come and say, give me statistics, say 80% of your calls are EMS. Of course, we just put 15,000 people. That's all. Yeah, that's all above 55. So, I mean,
You have that now without the seniors, okay?
We don't get the floodgates.
Fire services are about EMS, not fire. My opinion, okay? And we buy $1 million trucks so that we can go. We buy $1 million trucks so that we can go help somebody with an EMS problem.
And nobody cares until your house catches on fire.
John, I understand.
So when your house catches on fire, so we're not trained for your house
but
burns down.
also
and
understand
then we're gonna care about that.
Also-
I want that $1 million truck at that point, and I want it now. But my house catches on fire, I want it.
I want
got
it
it.
at a loss.
Oh, yeah, well, can't say on the record.
Also understand the conflicting message that you are sending the
Put
manager.
water on this house. But for the record, I don't want to decrease our fire department.
I
So the rest of
understand.
the commissions may, but I don't want to.
For the record, also understand that you are sending the manager a conflicting message.
They're,
Oh yeah.
they're,
So I told you to go back and check my record, because I don't think I ever told you.
As a whole, this
No, you said
commission,
I'm sending. I'm not sending you conflicting. I'm the only one talking.
you is the royal you, the commission.
I'm not talking about you
I
because you're gonna
believe
be outvoted.
the commission is sending a mixed message on fire
But let me
service.
send you this message: don't decrease the fire department per Commissioner John Christian.
I got it.
So that's not mixed. That's
I
clear.
know where
That's
you're at,
precise.
Commissioner
That's
Christian.
direct, and that's very loud and clear.
we are paying, what, 120% of median?
We are paying 120% of market median.
Do a little extra, 20% extra work. Or you could go down to 100% and you could hire about 5 other firefighters. I mean, that's my numbers.
Any other questions on the fire department?
That may be something we can talk about.
The interlocal service, is it the one with EMS or the one with the fire department
The
that
Lake
would?
County Fire that we have an interlocal with, based on the ISBA, we are technically responsible for any non-contiguous.
That's the
annexation.
$100 one?
That's the 500 for fire and 100 for EMS calls.
Okay. And so the old, at one point, didn't we have one with Lake EMS?
EMS subsidizes with a standard cost based on our total taxable value, and that kind of subsidizes the paramedic incentive thing. It's like $125,000.
Okay. That one we can opt out of in 60 days. So I think at some point we need to look and see if that, because it's an EMS issue, our cost-wise, are we getting the right number there? I have no idea.
They base that on a percentage of your taxable value in the whole city.
Right.
And I don't know the last time it was actually looked at.
And that concerns me because Claremont has much higher taxable value, but we got a lot more EMS calls.
They don't want near the calls we run. They
And
want a
that-
third of the calls we run.
Yeah, and the amount someone's house costs has nothing to do with the cost to respond to EMS. So that
I had
seems,
discussion on that.
and we can open that within 60 days. So
Especially mobile home.
yeah.
On public works, the first one is street maintenance. Any questions there? pretty much very similar. What did I do? Any questions on streets? On engineering? When did we jump to facilities there?
On facilities, what's the big increase in contract services we did in the project?
Yeah. We moved some special events, like cleanup after special events got moved over. It's about
Okay.
close to $19,000-$20,000.
Just decrease a little bit in grounds, yeah.
And then your utilities went up. Added more facilities.
Kind of lights out, DC.
You're gonna get back to the Javits plan.
Remember that. Psychological.
So any questions there on grounds too? You hit that a little bit. Administration, very similar. And then we jump out of public works into community development. Again,
Community development is the one that I still think we need to address the building inspector issue.
okay, we'll hit that in building.
Okay.
The community development in this side is just planning and zoning.
Oh, that's right. We have the separate fund.
And then we got housing, and no major changes there. Yell at me if I'm going too fast. Library, again, about the same.
You ain't spending no money, man. What we gonna talk about? You kept everybody in the same budget.
And recreation.
Except for Travis.
How's the library working with the cafe, with the Beacon? Is that going okay?
Very good. Good relationship.
And marina. Not too bad.
Only question I have for if Travis Recreation, do we have any new programs we're gonna be doing this year?
We kicked off this past year kickball, 3v3 soccer, and we're actually in the process of creating a team program to try to capture some of the Carver and Oak Park Middle School. We're trying to get them together to tell us what they want to do. 'Cause
Okay.
we see them getting out of the sports as they're going from youth to high school. So we're trying to capture what's going on. So we are working on a team program.
Okay.
So, I mean, as far as discussion points, walking away from this evening, there's maybe a couple of loose items in there we can touch up. But as far as setting the tax rate, I mean, there wasn't too much discussion on that. So, you know, barring that, we will bring you the DR 420 with the current rate.
What else?
It's the 3.5, 3.5, the millage.
No. Well, that would be opposite of your fellow commissioner. So.
I think me on that. I mean, if we can do it on the current millage rate that we have, to do that. But I also think we need. I just want to be sure that in the budget we're not, when we start talking about these other things, and that's what I said last night, that we're not funding things by dipping into our reserves and using our monies that we could advance otherwise for projects, and I understand.
Well, I
that.
think this year we showed you for 18. I think
Yeah.
we've showed you a pretty solid picture that you're not going to dip in your reserves to any great extent, other than for capital projects. You know, that's the potential. We've got already than what we already have. Okay,
Well,
so
I mean,
we've already dipped
even
in.
dipping into capital projects is, here's the thing. I mean, I support that we, the need for police and what what they're asking for. I hear what's being said about the fire department there as well, but those two things particularly, they as we spend more money to do those things, then I think you do have to look at it and say, okay, well, how is that affecting our how we move the city forward? And if we, as we're selling assets that the city has, particularly, I hate to see that in any kind of way that as those, we get money from the villages, or whether it's the fiber optics, or whether it's the marina, or whatever it is, that those monies are going in to now pay for police, or to pay for fire, or to pay for other pay payroll or other things that we have in the city. That those things should be being paid for out of tax revenue, for property taxes or fire assessments. And so if we need to bump a fire assessment, or if we need to bump the ad valorem to cover those things, so that we can take our other monies that we have and deal with our capital projects, and not let that police and not let the fire affect what we're doing with those things at the same time. So I have to be open to whatever we may need to do to accomplish that. Move forward with our capital projects, take care of our police and fire, whatever other things we have with 5% increase for salaries, whatever those things may be. But I don't want to touch our capital improvement monies. I think we need to move forward with those projects to make Leesburg the place that it.
I think to date, and let me underscore this because I thought I did last night, that has been our plan. Our plan has been only to sell those assets to create cash to make capital improvements. I think we followed that plan extremely closely since I've been here.
Yeah.
So the decrease in that's why I pointed out again tonight, the decrease that you saw in those reserves was this commission taking $6.5 million out of your reserves to set aside for the Venetian Gardens improvements. And then we showed, I think, future charts that showed that our operation expenses, even with the increases that we talked last night, can be maintained next year very reasonably.
But
For 18, the biggest issue that we have is probably what happens, or this is 18. For 19, the biggest issue that we're probably going to face is what's going to happen with the ad valorem rate.
That's what I was going to
Okay,
say.
so
At some point.
but let's be real about that. That's a $250,000 problem. That is 18 months off. There's a lot of things that are going to transpire. Now let's talk about selling assets. Everything that we've projected for the sale of assets has been for a capital project. The sale of the 470 property, not only does that involve a potential net gain of about $8.5 million for potential capital improvements, remember that also is going to bring upwards of $1 billion of new taxable value if it builds out at what we suggest. So the sale of that property not only gets you $8.5 million in potential capital money, it also has the potential to bring you somewhere between $3 and $4 million in recurring revenue that's going to go back and tackle some of these other problems. And we haven't even talked about that forecast. So that's why when that chart falls off, that sale of that asset in particular not only puts cash in your pocket, but puts significant perpetual recurring revenue in your pocket to go to pay for firefighters or police officers, which is basically what you're doing in the general fund. So I think we've got a good plan. I think that there might be a little tweak in here and there. This year I think is a great example of we came with a plan to increase pay for employees, and we were able to come with a plan. I think it delayed, it kicked a little bit, it kicked some officers down the road, but again I think we can capture that next year, and I think we've made a good plan that really reduces our expenditures. We've continued, we're proposing to take the current rate, which is a tax rate, but yet we're reducing our electric rates, and we still see our other utility funds doing well. So overall, I think we're doing what we wanted. I think where our frustration is coming in a little bit is what are we going to do with those capital revenues? And that's the trepidation. How much really do we have? Some of these schemes are still based on not realizing money yet. So I think that makes me nervous a little bit. So that makes me slow a little bit as we move forward. But I think those discussions will be coming in later months. I think they're part of this budget discussion. But I mean, as far as the immediate future and where our plan is, I think it's pretty good. I work at your discretion, so if you guys would like to make changes, as in adding firefighters or increasing millage rates, I think I'm bringing a collective budget. So I think the department heads have worked well to trim it up and bring you a budget that, really frankly, for all practical purposes, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion on. So I think that's a mark that the department heads and your team is doing their jobs.
I'm okay with the current rate.
Current rate.
And my with knowing there's going to be a tax increase coming ahead because of the legislature, and there's some other things going on in the legislature that could make it even more difficult on us with the way they want to do communication service tax revenues. They want to cut those. That's $1 million a year to us.
That's right.
And then also because of the way ad valorem is structured, I mean, you're basically asking businesses to shoulder the entire, rate because of Leesburg with 100,000 exemption and the cap on increased values. Businesses are funding your fire assessment fee, and they're funding your millage increases to a disproportionate share, and aren't always getting the same electric revenue. We always talk about in the comparisons how it affects a person with a $125,000 house on their electric bill, but that doesn't always flow through the same to businesses. And I think we have to be careful on how hard we hit those, given that that's what we're really struggling to attract.
Yeah, but on the other hand, though, I think we've shifted from what wasn't a good plan to put the burden on the utilities. When you go back to that pie chart, that you're cutting the utility transfers over as much as you can there. But we went from I think unfair utility rates at the expense of having lower tax rates at the expense of having higher utility rates, and so I don't think we can go back there.
No, I'm not suggesting.
No, because where you need to go is increase in taxes, and you're going to need to go back to ad valorem. I think you got your options in that. I think you got to go back to ad valorem. I think you have to go back to fire assessment fee, or you have to look at cutting what services. And you talked about that a little bit with the PIO, the media dissemination stuff.
So I hate I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know the plan for it, but I think there's a perception, and maybe it's actual, that our property values in Leesburg aren't increasing at the rate that they are increasing in other cities in Lake County.
It's absolutely factual.
Okay, so I know we're doing things. We're building a community center. We're doing things to improve Leesburg, but is there more we can do to help to increase the livability of Leesburg, to bring it up, to help make property values go up, so that we don't have to increase the taxes as much? And so I say that without any plan to say that there's any more we can do than what we're actually doing. But are we doing enough? Can we do more? I mean, you would go to your department heads and department heads to your staff and say, is there more we can do in our department, or as a city? And so I just bring that up to say, can we, if you start looking forward and saying that, okay, we're going to probably have to raise the ad valorem at some point in time. So if that's going to happen 2 years, 3 years from now, is there any more we can do with the opportunities that we have right now to be more of a catalyst to helping the property values to increase, whether that's more capital improvements, whether it's more recreation, whether it's doing things with our schools, whether it's getting involved with a technical program to educate kids that they have abilities to get jobs, and training that they're not getting in schools, and the vocational skills and things. What are there things that we can be doing as a city that maybe aren't things that the city typically does, but something that we could do to help Leesburg in a way that's unique to Leesburg? And I don't have any answer to that, but I think we're doing great things. I think all the work that we're doing, the budget and the staff and everything that we do as a city currently are great. I look at the budget and what you're doing here, and so it's not to say that we're not doing a lot or anything. It's just is there more we can do with that? We're gonna have to raise property taxes one day, and so is there more we can do looking forward to that?
Let me address that kind of in a global sense, at least from, this is the fourth budget I've helped you prepare since being hired here to Leesburg. And I think we're really doing a good job of balancing everything. I don't think we can fix everything. We can't fix everything overnight. And I think there's certain things that we can do that government needs to do to prime the pump, to create growth, to create tax growth, and to create opportunity in our community. So let's talk about that. And so let's talk about some of the goals that the commission had 4 years ago to now. Two, right off the top of the head, have been to reinvigorate Venetian Gardens, to invest in the city's diamond in the rough, to create a sense of place and attraction to Leesburg. And by us investing in ourselves, in that public amenity, hopefully you create buzz and atmosphere and more draw to people. Now, we're not there. We're finished phase 1. We got phase 2 underway, and I imagine in the next couple months we'll be having some really good discussions on phase 3. I think, though, in the next 2 years that hopefully that's done. And so we're not going to know where that's going to go. Everything's always long-term. But we're paying significant investment to that amenity. We've also paid in the last couple years significant investments to our right-of-ways and our streets and thoroughfares to improve those. We've put over $1 million in now to the 441 corridor, trying to improve our link to Tavares and the east side of the county all the way through. We're doing that, another $1 million improvement at 441-27 intersection where there's a big giant hole. The number one thing I think communities can do is improve those thoroughfares and right-of-ways. Those are the things that people come into your community, they see, they judge you on immediately. Judge you whether, like, looking at that. So we're making significant investment. We're doing it on a cash basis. We've also invested at the airport with the Whipper thing, with the seaplane ramp. We've also invested in our blighted areas. We've reinvested in our housing projects. We've started the Carver Heights project with the Resource Center. We've added a couple $100,000 now over the last course of a year trying to demolish dilapidated structures, where we've had opportunity to take down dilapidated buildings like the Venetian Isles Apartments, or even our most recent attempt, whether it comes to fruition or not with the Stay and Save, we're making attempts to harness those distressed properties and fix those. So we're doing those things. On a tax level, we're trying to keep our taxes down. We implemented the fire assessment fee. We've worked on trying to make proper infrastructure improvements. Even on the positive side of smart grid, we've done that. We've also helped with. I think we've improved our customer service, and we've lowered rates. We've lowered rates significantly for the people in the region of Leesburg. So all those things, I think,
splash pad and the playground, a lot of things.
There's lots of positive. I think
let's go back to this marketing thing to say let's spread the word. I mean, I love Leesburg. It's a great place, and there's a lot of good things we're doing, and like you said, we're doing it on a cash basis. So you get property values up, you get the demand. So we go out there and get the word out there better, wherever it is that we target people that don't want to live in Miami anymore, or don't want to live in in Kissimmee or wherever it might be, to say, come to Leesburg. And
so I just mentioned those things as far as an infrastructure things. The other big thing the commission said, when I was hired, there's 3 or 4 big tasks you had. Again, one of it, was we need to hire an economic developer, and we need to invest in the 470 property and try to get industry out there. And so we did that, and we had some success. I don't think we ever beat the drum, through the efforts of Mike, ever beat the economic development drum harder. It got us a little bit of advancement. And then all of a sudden, the village knocked on our door, which totally changed the scope of our thought that we had on the 470 property for 20 years. But overnight, that contract that's sitting on our desk to sell that property is just monumentally huge and has the potential to change Leesburg and the region. And it not different than what we see, not different at least in the community that you live in, Legacy. And so that closing that, making that deal happen, I think is paramount for Leesburg. And if the commission doesn't see that as I do, then we need to have discussions on that. I'm feeling like you guys see that. But that deal, closing that deal, in my opinion, is significant for Leesburg. And it's a big shift. But if that gets done, that gets closed, and then the Villages delivers what they promise, and I think they have the track record for doing that, then we're going to see development that we've never seen before. Then we're going to start looking like a Mount Dora. Then we're going to start looking like a Claremont. Then hopefully the tax assessor or the tax appraiser is not going to come to Leesburg and make fun of us because of our blight and low returns. And because he didn't do that to Fruitland Park, and Fruitland Park looked a lot like Leesburg, then it would look a lot like us until that smaller subdivision of the Villages came in. So I think part of our realization in Florida has to be that part of our major economy, while we want to be widget manufacturers, we want to grow, we're not there. And our bread and butter is tourism, retirement communities, and the spin-off economy from that, and that is a huge issue for the city of Leesburg and has the potential, again, around $1 billion of taxable value. So overnight, what we were working on for 20 years, we've gotten one or two companies literally at 470 on the industrial side. One or two companies for all the effort and investment we're putting in. Overnight, by changing our thought and accepting what Florida is, there's $1 billion of taxable value sitting out there for our community. So so now you tie those things together, and I think those are all the success stories. And now let's talk about some of the areas where I think we need to do more. There's a lot of things I think we need to come back and talk about as far as rentals and getting a good, strong rental ordinance going so that we tackle our blight. There's other things, going back, reviewing our codes to be we've talked about improvement and these type of things. So I think there's other things we haven't gotten to because some of the bigger things have gotten in the way. But I think all in all, we're in a good spot. I think we followed your direction pretty good. So
And what
I
I
don't
said
know,
was,
the last couple of days I felt trepidation, everybody's starting to go a different way. And I think at the end we're wanting to get to the same place differently, but
and don't take what I was saying to say we're not that we're not doing anything, and that's not what I meant at all. I hope I was clear on that to start. It's just, I feel a little urgency from the standpoint, kind of what Elise was saying. I don't know if I'll be here in 2 years when my term's up, and so I just want to see we do as much as we can. So it's not in any way what I said is not a reflection, and to say that we're not doing anything or I'm not satisfied with what we're doing. It's to want to just keep going and do as much as we can. So don't take anything I said, because I kind of hear you saying you feel a little maybe. But
change it on me here a little bit.
I don't think I've changed. I don't think anything I've said is different than what I've said to you privately. So that's
no.
So
I think too you're forgetting that once the Villages moves into Leesburg, that's going to open up a whole other world with other communities and whatnot looking to move into Leesburg. And don't think we haven't heard from some of the top guys. Rick Scott has offered his assistance in this and making it happen. So we're already getting out there, and the Leesburg is being known.
Well, speaking of that, and I've had this, I don't think we can go to the Villages and say, we're not doing this unless you do this. So in any way, but I don't see anything wrong with going to Governor Scott and saying, we're looking forward to this, and we want villagers to come to Leesburg. So we could really use some help in doing West Main Street. If there's anything at all that could be done,
Okay.
it's not a demand or anything, but
He has offered his help. I'd be glad to talk to him about that.
if we can get the state involved, helping to do something to
It
improve.
also might wake up the county.
Yeah, but to improve that area from 27.
That's a state road through there.
44.
Yeah, that's still state all the way through. The county doesn't have that part of West Main, do they?
No, they do.
The county does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how that would.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't mean to get on a diatribe there. I
No,
thought
no, no,
We're not doing too bad, but, you know, I think that on the general fund side, that's probably the trickiest one we have, and you know, there's still some red flags out there in the future, but I think all things considered, it's a pretty conservative approach, and I think we make the improvements where we can, and we continue to be sustainable, so.
Thank you. Anything else this evening, or?
No.
Thank you, Al, and everybody.
A pleasure, and
for
again, I
everything.
appreciate all the department head work on this, so